All right, welcome to Alex's Intro to Windows 2012, Section 2, Part 3, DHCP. Now, the DHCP server is here, and I'm going to have to configure it. And I know I said that I was going to come back with DC1 online entirely, but I'd forgotten that I did choose the reboot option, or maybe the reboot option was already chosen for me. So we're going to set up Hyper-V Integration Services, aka VMware Tools in this case, and join this second server to our domain. And if we look at these two, our virtual environment here, see both of these servers are connected to a virtual switch that has no adapters, which would be a private virtual switch in a Microsoft world. And really, it's a private virtual switch here. At some point later, we're going to set up a machine to bridge and act as a firewall between this network and the outside world. And then we're going to pretend that we've got all this wonderful networking stuff over here that goes through, rather than whatever ISP I've got as a cable provider. Most hated company in the world. So here's my local server. This is a little different than last time because we're going to enable NIC teaming. There's a lot of ways you can get to NIC teaming here. New team by left-clicking, right-clicking, add to new team, left-clicking up in this tasks. Oop, nope, not there. I'm just going to choose this one. New team, NIC team. Let's talk about multipath input-output. What do you think that means? How about I have two paths from a source to a destination? So theoretically, I could have two switches that are each gigabit switches, and I could have two network cards, one that goes to each switch, and the two switches can be connected to each other or to a central state switch. And in fact, I've got this warning switch independent. Oh, nope, that was just being slow. And I could have a file server that I'm trying to access, or a print server, that's got two NICs, each of which will act with the right address, and if one of them drops off, the other one can keep running. NIC teaming is similar. It's got some advantages in that Microsoft did the drivers and the logical work, so there's no more Intel adapters won't team with Broadcom adapters, which won't team with 3Com adapters, that won't team with Alcatel adapters. And you can also do MPIO with software. So we've turned on a NIC team, and you see this now says NIC team. The two IPs assigned by DHCP no longer exist, and these adapters, although you can probably muck with them, you can't muck with them. Even better. So you go to the NIC team properties, And let's go to set an IP address on this machine. 10.1.1.12 subnet mask 255.255.255.0 because it's got to be on the same as the other machine. 10.1.1.1 doesn't exist yet. And 10.1.1.11. Yay, 11. Okay. Okay. Close. And we should have a network. So if we press start, ooh, it's a new interface. We can say Windows PowerShell and then say ping 10.1.1.11. It doesn't like me. Why not? I'm going with the firewall is on. Ten dot one dot one dot 12. Let's turn on VMware Tools. Integration Services. Let's see what's going on with this machine. No. Give me my window. Exit. You'll notice in PowerShell, it takes all of the typical command arguments. So you don't really have to go around anymore. And that's going to time out. You don't have to go around anymore. And go searching for the command prompt. If you wanted to, you could go here and say command. Really, the command prompt is deprecated. So it's going to be subsumed or hidden for the few tools that they haven't made PowerShell operable, which in a lot of cases is just going to be they're going to write a new interface for PowerShell for the command. Pretty much anything you can get through Server Manager is set up that way. And this doesn't like the fact there's no internet access. Okay, so I was installing VMware Tools because I was tired of waiting for this thing. I'm just running this from the command line. You could browse to it. And in fact, I'm about to browse to it. I was obviously talking. Right click, oops, run as administrator. And after the VMware Tools install, integration services, then I'm going to try joining this machine to the domain. While I'm waiting for that to run, you notice on the left side of the dashboard you have new listings. And these are the listings of everything available on the machine. And if you go to these machines, you'll see the options available. And they come up in context. So when we were in the AD tab on the left-hand side, and you right-clicked, you got the Active Directory Administrative Center, Active Directory Domains and Trusts, the Active Directory module for PowerShell, Active Directory Sites and Services, and Active Directory Users and Computers. So for people who have used older versions of Windows Server, especially prior to 2008 R2, maybe R1, you're familiar with this tool. This has got a bunch of built-in containers. And if you right-click, you can say New Organizational Unit. And call it Servers. And I'm going to protect it from accidental deletion. You don't want to have to deal with this stuff unless you've got the recycle bin enabled. So you may or may not want to make that Servers OU, but you do want to go to the Active Directory Administrative Center, and you're going to want to enable the recycle bin. See here, I'm just hitting Next for VMware Tools. Escape that, and let's show you the Active Directory Administrative Centers. Overview, learn more, find answers on the forum, deploy dynamic access control. That's going to be a big one you got to know about. So if you click on the lab.local, that's the domain. You can change domain controller, connect to a different domain, raise the forest functional level, raise the domain level, and enable the recycle bin, which is so important that they put it over here, even though once you click on it, it's not undoable, and this becomes grayed out. So they said refresh, refresh. You have this deleted objects container, and this is grayed out entirely. All right, DNS. Right-click, DNS Manager. This is our server. You have forward lookup zones and reverse lookup zones. That's the most important thing for you to know right now. And this MSDCS gets delegated to the DNS server in Active Directory, although you could create it and have it be in a bind system of some sort. You really need it to be dynamic, and it's got to be a high enough version of bind to be happy. These are things like, what is the domain? The domain service record, LDAP, where are we? There we go, sites, get the first site name, underscore Kerberos, underscore LDAP. This is stuff that the Windows machine looks for if it thinks it's on a domain, and we'll point it to, in this case, DC11. And you've also got your basic lab.internal, where I've got one server here. This is grayed out because that's delegated as a different zone. And this is, oops. Can I pull properties? No, it's pointing this as name server for this domain, which is the same machine, but doesn't really matter. Where are we over here? So this is finished, and we're restarting. If we go over here, we can check and see what the actual consumed memory is versus the active. So it's 8 a.m. We're running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're running about as high as we've run so far. Looks like K has got to be bytes. 8 gig allocated, and you see way down here I've got maybe 3 gig in use, which is apparently about the average, and the minimum is like 1 gig for whatever this time period is. And you can get a lot of this eye candy through perfmon and Hyper-V. Although there's faster tools to do it than perfmon. I think Resource Manager. I rebooted this without joining it to the domain, didn't I? Okay, you see it's now come up faster though. So local server, we're going to have to wait for this bar to stop running. And it stopped. So let's go workgroup, change domain. So I want to change the computer name to DHCP 12. I'm going to change the name to lab. Couldn't find the host. Typo there. All right. I'm unable to contact the host. That's a basic typo kind of thing. If I was in a class, somebody would have seen that and pointed it out. My IP address is not on the same subnet as my other machine. And it's trying to reach a gateway that also doesn't exist. And there is no connectivity. Go down here. CLS stands for clear screen. And I can ping it by DNS name. Important thing, don't you think? Now it can ask us for a username and password. Now, this is waiting for the group policy client to get any settings that are on the domain. As a practical issue at this point, we don't really have any. So these are all the Microsoft defaults, which are built into the virtual machine itself. But we now have our second machine on the domain despite my delay. So if you go over to this machine now and say DHCP 12, we left this in NS lookup, it gives me an IP address. Exit. And you can see here, from trying to ping this machine's not really up yet, or the firewall's on. Now, you need to get in as another user. Other user, because you've got two users with the same name, you have to specify lab/administrator. I've never logged in as lab administrator before, so it's taking its time. You see, we're still not pingable. So, might want to change that. You might not. I don't know what your policies are. If you configure DHCP servers to ping, then you might want to allow that. Yeah, that's not coming in. Okay. Add role and feature. Could do it here. Let's take a look at the server and see if remote management's enabled. So this gets enabled. The firewall's on. We don't really know what the settings are. We can go look at it. Block all connections to apps that aren't on the list of allowed apps. Well, what's on the list of allowed apps? Core networking. File and print sharing is not allowed. Oh, where's ICMP? See, all this stuff is currently not enabled. Teredo's enabled, which means that if your router supports it and it's advertised in DNS, it's a 6-to-4 or 6 tunneling through 4. What's it called? ICMP in allowed v6. I'm looking for ICMP v4. Doesn't look like it's turned on. All right. Go to here, close out of that. Dashboard. Add other servers to manage. Does that sound wise? So how are we going to search? I'm just going to find it. I could have typed it in. And that server's got no features on it. So it shows up in all servers. Doesn't show in ADDS or DNS because it doesn't have either of those. But it does have storage. So you got 2 servers. You can say volumes. This will show you the volumes for both servers. And you can either right-click the DHCP 12 here and say add roles and features, or you can go to the dashboard and say add roles and features and then select this server. Now, PowerShell will not run through multiple machines, but you can connect from one machine to the next to run commands. You'll see this is already selected. And this is going to be a DHCP server. Add features, next, 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 install. You can close this wizard without interrupting running tasks, which is really good because I want to install a feature on this domain controller. DC11, not a role. Really, you shouldn't be doing anything from the server. If you can run the remote server administration tools remotely from your workstation, that's good. And you'll see here this is grayed out partially because I've got some of the stuff selected, and it's because I've got these things selected already from installing the feature. And I've probably got DNS tools in here somewhere. There you go, DNS server tools. And we're going to install DHCP server tools. So let's see, where's DHCP 12? Oh, we don't really care. We're able to install, we're happy. So installation succeeded of the remote tools. If I click in this window, I've also got the installations for the feature succeeded on DHCP 12, which still needs to be managed. So let's go refresh this thing. And I now have a DHCP manager showing me the server. It says I need configuration. I've also got the warning up here saying I need to complete the DHCP configuration. So there's a number of places. I'm going to use my credentials. Done. So authorization just means if you've got a server, somebody has to have enough rights to be able to authorize a domain-joined server to function as a DHCP server. And it's there as a protective measure. And now I can say DHCP manager. So IPv4, I'm going to add a scope. So I selected it there. So we're calling this lab.internal 10.0.0.x /24. So 10.0.0.20, 10.0.0.40. If you look at the length of the bit mask here, you could say 24, or you could say 25, and you'll notice that the sublet mask changes. 23, 24. And the real answer is, just remember, 24 gives you about 254 addresses, and you're either doubling it or halving it, depending on whether you make the length of the subnet mask shorter, which gives you more bits to the nodes, or if you make the subnet mask longer, which takes bits away from the nodes. Now, do I want to add exclusions? If I had said I was doing the entire range, I would say yes, and it's kind of considered good practice to make a static reservation for your servers. And it'll ask you, do you want to set up some of the default, some of the more popular items, I should say. 10.0.0.1, default gateway. If the machine is not on my subnet, where do I send the packet to go? DNS servers. You can see this has already got lab.internal as a domain, and it's got the IP address already there. Probably I would get both if I had both of them on there. Wins is like DNS for net BIOS. I'm not going to deal with it. You could have it. It wouldn't be an issue, and I'm going to activate the scope on the spot. All right, that was it for DHCP. It's here. If I had another virtual machine here to demo for you, I could get a DHCP address, and we'll see that later. The next video is going to be I think I lost the screen. Windows Deployment Services. And from Windows Deployment Services, we're going to add a boot image and add an install image. So I'll see you there.